Welcome to the Football Show. I'm Peter Martin. Richard Foster and Tam McManus are here with me on this Tuesday to talk football. We will look back at some of those weekend games, and as the fallout from the Rangers-Celtic match continues, we'll discuss what's been happening with the SPFL, Neil Doncaster, what he's had to say on some of the topics like strict liability. We'll also look at some of the players that were receiving praise, some that got criticism, and analyse whether there's a future for some of them at Rangers or Celtic. You can give us your view if you still want to talk about the matches involving your favourite clubs. And of course, looking a little further ahead, because this is the final game before the split, there's the small matter of the Edinburgh Derby and the Dundee Derby to look forward to, as well as keeping a close eye on what's happening with Rangers and Celtic in the matches that they will be playing in this weekend coming. But still, the fallout from Saturday and Sunday's matches continues. And we also have to start with a bit of bad news, because Tam, ankle surgery for Nathan Patterson. It's a blow. He was hoping to make his full debut for Everton against West Ham. Didn't quite materialise, picked up an injury, now needs ankle surgery. He's going to be out, and that's a blow for us as well.
Yeah, it's a disaster for him. I think he's obviously went down there thinking he was going to play, but somehow the boy Kenny's been playing in front of him, who was up here at Celtic. He was terrible up here. Seamus Coleman as well, who is getting on. So he's not really had an opportunity at Everton, and he's just starting to probably get into the manager's thoughts, and then he's done his ankle. So it's devastating for him. It's devastating for us, because he's a big part of the way we play, and that right wing back role. You know, he can get energy to get up and down. So hopefully it's no, a 6 month job, 7 month job. Hopefully it's maybe just a couple of months, and he's maybe in the shake up for the game in June. But it's a real blow for a kid.
Yeah, one of those situations where he comes in, obviously everybody says, oh, you've got to be playing regular football. He's not. Comes into Scotland's friendlies and he's a standout.
Yeah, I mean, I think his first half performance in the first game the other week there was remarkable, considering he's had he hasn't had many games. But yeah, it's always concerning, I think, when younger players are needing surgery so early into their career. He won't have 50 games under his belt yet, and he's already needing surgery. So it's a shame for him, and you hope it's maybe just like, as Tam said, it's maybe just a little ankle clean-up or something, and there's not going to be a long layoff period, because you've not been playing games, you've then got yourself injured. It will be hard for him to get back in time for June if it's a couple of months layoff. So you hope he can recover really quickly from it, but it is a blow for Scotland.
Yeah, and the double whammy here is suddenly Kieran Tierney. Mikel Arteta saying he was out of the Arsenal game against Crystal Palace, not looking good. Looks as if today we'll get a full prognosis of it, but it's a knee injury which could keep him out as well.
Yeah, and I think that's every bit, if not bigger, blow for Scotland. That it's a blow for Kieran Tierney himself, but it's a blow for Scotland. I think the way him and Andy Robertson dovetailed on that left hand side, it's worked fabulously well. I think it allows Robertson to go forward because he knows he's got a full back behind him, one who's comfortable playing that position. And Tierney himself bombs on as well when Scotland are on top. So it'll be a huge blow, because I don't know who you put in to replace Kieran Tierney at left side centre half for Scotland at the moment. You certainly won't get someone with the kind of the forward momentum that he brings. So it's, like I say, it's another blow for Scotland.
Scott McKenna?
Yeah, Scott McKenna, he's left-sided, Andrew Considine left-sided, but they don't bring what Tierney does. He's that natural fullback, kind of playing almost within himself, but then once he gets a chance to open up his legs, and it allows Robertson a bit more freedom as well, whereas if he's playing with just a centre-half behind him, there's probably more onus then on Robertson to defend the balls in behind, because centre-halves don't typically like coming out the middle of the pitch.
Yeah, it's amazing. We've been crying out for long enough to make sure we've got a settled formation. He's gone with that 3-5-2 based on the fact that he's always had to accommodate Kieran Tierney and Robertson in the team, and Tierney's so flexible he can play left of a three.
Yeah, it's cruel for us, for Scotland, if he's out long term, Kieran Tierney, because as Richard said, he's a top player. He's got linked to some massive clubs, down there in England. He's been outstanding for Arsenal, so that's going to be a blow. And as you said, he sits in there and lets Robertson get on. But I think we can bring in guys like McKenna, who's doing well at Nottingham Forest, just to kind of fill in that gap. But it doesn't bring you the same kind of stuff going forward. So no, listen, I think it is a blow, but we need to wait and see how long he's out for. It could be a couple of months, it could be 6 months. We just need to wait and see what the prognosis is.
Yeah, well, we're reading out some of your messages as well. Thanks very much to everyone who's joining us, and thanks very much for your support and hitting the subscribe button. The figures going up and up, and on a regular basis we're getting lots of high numbers on the podcast as well. Absolutely fabulous of people downloading the podcast. And if you download our app, you can get the podcast on there, or indeed watch it on YouTube live or at your leisure. The podcast and the live show, and of course every bit of breaking news north and south of the border is on our app, so it's well worth downloading it. Thanks to everyone for that. The other thing I was going to say to you guys is, well, what about this week? Because there's big games coming up. Big game for Rangers. I just wonder what the fallout will be from losing that game. They just have to try and now just let it go, Richard, and concentrate on Braga coming up.
Yeah, I think it's looking likely now that's their only avenue into the Champions League, as if they win the Europa League. Now, it's not going to be easy with the teams that are left in it, but they've already beat Borussia Dortmund. They've put in their best performances of the season in Europe, and I certainly think that the European campaign has impacted the league form. I think they looked, a lot of players looked a little bit jaded, especially as the game wore on. The other day they weren't really able to put Celtic under a lot of pressure. And all these games takes its toll, especially when the manager likes to stick with the same starting 11 for most games. He maybe changes one or two players. But yeah, this is now their opportunity. They've got to go out there and put in a good performance first and foremost, and get a good result, and hopefully get through this tie. And like I say, I think this is their only avenue into the Champions League now.
Yeah, strangely enough though, they'd have to win it. I can't see that happening.
But could you see them beating Dortmund?
No, I genuinely couldn't. But again, the world and our game is full of opinions, and at the end of the day, I don't think they're good enough to go all the way, although they keep confounding everybody. The other aspect of it is you only have to look at the fallout from this game. My God, I'm listening to some fans. They wanted some people on a bus and taken out right now. And that's what happens when you lose a game, isn't it? Yeah. You can be a hero 1 minute, then rubbish the next.
Yeah, it's still a firm game, isn't it? The losers, you're going to get so much abuse and stick, and the winner takes the plaudits. But I think that I don't see Rangers winning it either. I think that Barcelona in there, Leipzig, teams like that would be too strong for them. I can see them beating Braga over 2 legs.
Yeah.
I can see them doing that. But I think the semi-finals and finals going to be difficult. But they're going to have to go and do something. They've got a couple of big games coming up. Obviously the Braga and then the semi-final against Celtic. Their season could effectively be over in the next fortnight. If they get put out into Europe and lose that game. So it's a real couple of big games coming up for Van Bronckhorst.
Well, I was going to say to you, it is April. I'm looking at the next month, and then obviously the managers get decisions to make. I think we all know it doesn't take a rocket scientist to suggest that he is going to look at his own type of player. He needs a transfer window, Giovanni Van Bronckhorst, to think about the players that he wants to bring in. Look at the players who are going to be out of contract in the summer. Some of them, obviously, as you can see from this graphic, might actually be looking to just hang up the boots. One of them's Alan McGregor. Connor Golson, still debate over him. Liam Balogun, Scott Arfield, Stephen Davis is getting on. Ramsey's loan ends. I think he'll go back to Juventus. Amad Diallo hasn't featured. I don't think he's got a future of any deal. And then they're in their final year. Aribo, Kent, Morelos, Sands, Jack, Hilander and McCrory, Richard.
Yeah, it'll be a pivotal time. I think you're right. I think he needs, he'll have his own players in mind that he wants to bring in. I think he might be, I would imagine they'll want to sell a Morelos, a Kent. I think the time is right. I think they've both had relatively good seasons. And it's not as if Rangers are flush with cash. Every few months we hear how much they're losing, kind of month on month. So they will need to sell some of their big players. Otherwise, their board are going to have to dig into their pockets again and kind of help them out with money. But I think, players like Kent and Morelos, I think if they don't move now, then they're probably never going to get the move that they want. And I think they themselves will probably look to move on. So I think his hand will be forced. Because ideally he would want to keep those two are two of his better players. Someone like Ryan Jack, he's still not really kind of overcome the injuries. He's still picking up little niggles here and there. But do you give him another contract? I think he's probably worth it. But then the ones are, I think you lose someone like Alan McGregor. It probably looks likely that he will retire. But if you lose him in the dressing room, you see what it means to him. I think he's one of the only ones, him and Steve Davis as well. They're big characters to lose out the dressing room, so how do you replace those? Do you hope the younger ones like the Ryan Jack step up to the plate, or do you try and bring someone else in with huge experience? But it'll be interesting to see what he does in the summer and what Rangers do in terms of who they have to sell.
Yeah, I mean, I think the general feeling is that the league may be beyond them now. It is a huge month for them. The Cup, certainly, the whole thing about everybody thinking the whole thing's come crashing down because Celtic have a 6-point advantage. There's still a cup to play for. They've still got a chance to go and win the Scottish Cup. The players will not be giving up on the league title. And as Richard mentioned there, anything can happen if you get past Braga. It's such a huge month this coming up for Rangers. It could determine quite a lot of the anger and fighting that's going on in the background between supporters and the board and everything. It's either going to increase or suddenly results on the park may well stem the flow of anger.
Yeah, it is a huge month. And Rangers need to win something, I think, this season. I think they obviously won the league last year, which was great, but the record in cup competitions over the last 3 or 4 years has been dreadful. They've not won a cup in 4 or 5 years. So, listen, I think it's vital that they try and win something this season for Van Bronckhorst as well. The league was obviously the priority and the money that came with that. But you're right, they've still got the league to play, the cup to play for, and they've still got the Europe to play for. But just going back and touching on some of the players, I think there will be a fire sale at Ibrox this year. I think that they gambled, they kept, Morelos, Kent, probably offers for them in the summer there, but they thought this is a great opportunity for us to get the Champions League money, win the league and get that 30-40 million. We'll keep our best players, but I think if Rangers don't win the Europa League, and I don't think if they don't win the league, I think Morelos will be away, I think Kent will be away, because they're not going to sign another contract for me. They're not going to, they'll be wanting to go and test themselves. Yeah. At a higher level, and this is their opportunity. Morelos doesn't leave this summer, he might end up with a testimonial. He might end up there, he's 35, at 35 I'm thinking, he might get a move. He's got to go now, I think, Morelos, and you can see how much he was missed at the weekend. I think he's a top striker, and if the rumours are right and he's picked up a bad injury and he's missing at the end of the season, then he maybe not kicking another ball for Rangers.
Yeah, the key issue for me coming up with Braga and the double header is quite simply, if you're thinking about getting a move and depending on the stature of club that you think you can play at, the weekend was a perfect chance for Kent to go and rip it up, because everybody looks at the Old Firm Derby match and thinks this is a showcase. It's a red hot atmosphere. There's a pressure. There was an increased pressure because there's so much at stake. It was the chance for him to really take the game to Celtic. He failed again to do that. He's got another opportunity against Braga to suddenly do something. I always thought that Steven Gerrard's reputation was enhanced by what they did in Europe. And Kent, I think, has to step up, and some other players have to step up if they want to either see a future away from Rangers or a club, that's going to offer them a really good level of high-class football.
Yeah, I mean, I think Kent has been outstanding in the European ties.
Yeah.
Against Borussia Dortmund, both legs, he was incredible. Kind of ghosting past players, winning penalties, and he sets up the first goal. He sets up the Rangers goal. So you're looking at your creative players go and make things happen, and he done that early in the game. You've got to appreciate as well that he's playing against Juranovic. So Juranovic had a real shaky start, but he's a top quality player. Yeah. So eventually he's going to start kind of finding his feet and make it more difficult for Ryan Kent. And I think at that point, I think he probably needs help from the rest of his team. I think for too long, Rangers have basically relied on Kent and Morelos, especially in the last few weeks to go and make something happen, to go and do something. I think I wasn't overly disappointed with Ryan Kent's performance in the Old Firm game. Like I say, started really well, set up a goal, and then maybe they didn't get him in the game enough. But I don't think that was anything to do with Ryan Kent. I think it was maybe just the way Celtic played. Juranovic kind of came on to a better game. But I think he's done enough to go and get a move, like I say, especially in the European ties. And yes, they'll be looking at the Old Firm game, but the biggest game Rangers have played this season is 2 games against Borussia Dortmund, and Kent was outstanding in both of those.
Is he a top half Premier League player, a bottom half, or a Championship player?
I think he's probably somewhere mid-table Premiership player. I think he can. He's got the pace, all the attributes to play in the Premiership in England, I believe. But you get players go down there and they sign for a team, they sign for a Leeds United, and you think, all right, they're going to be fighting relegation, and all of a sudden they have a fabulous season, and it could be mid-table. So I think he's good enough to play down there. He probably needs to add a bit more consistency to his game. But again, he's still relatively young. Consistency tends to come with age. So I think he could go down there and play. And I think, given the fact that he's not going to go to a Champions League team in England, that's I'm pretty convinced of that. But given the fact that Rangers won't be in the Champions League next season anyway, I think he'll want to go and test himself in the Premiership down in England.
Yeah, well, if there's a fair bit of consternation after that defeat to Celtic, as far as the green and white half of the city, everything seems rosy at the moment. They're talking about players that they want to try and get on permanent deals. Over and above that, this has been a transformation under the manager Ange Postecoglou, which most Celtic fans are raving about. He can do no wrong at the moment, and Callum McGregor, the Celtic captain, said after the game that he could tell by the players he was bringing in, he knew the manager wanted to win the title this season.
When I seen this group of players come in and train, I knew very quickly that it wasn't a transition for us. We were wanting to win. The players were hungry to win. The manager's super hungry. That's the demands that he puts on the group, and we just seem to be getting sort of better, and we're facing more challenges together as a group. And I think when you do that, then you give yourself a real good base for the season, and that's where we are just now. But we understand there's still a lot of football to be played.
Well, the pivotal moment, I think, is when you look at the shaky start. People are thinking he's coming off the back of the debacle of Eddie Howe. People are wondering, what is he going to offer? They've had a shaky start, but then slowly but surely, in a number of games, you started to see the way he wanted them to play. And then suddenly he was asking players that he'd inherited to respond to that style, and players that he brought in. And remember, of course, the real bonus for him is he was able to, he was continually on the case of the Celtic board saying, look, I need players in quickly.
Yeah, and I think he's got to take enormous credit for that, because I think a lot of the players are brought in by Postecoglou. There's no director of football at Celtic. I think he's done most of the signings. Whereas at Rangers, I've obviously got a team, Ross Wilson's there, and they identify targets, but Postecoglou's went to the board and says, listen, I've got these guys from Japan, you can come over and they can go straight into the team, and they're not, as Callum McGregor touched on there, they're no squad fillers, they're not just going to come in and, be on the bench, they're going to come in and challenge for a starting place, and I think that's been crucial. Kyogo, Maeda, brilliant players, and, guys like that have come into the team and really improved Celtic, so, no, I think he's done a brilliant job. And I think he's got the trust of the board now. I think if he goes in the summer and says, right, I want this, this and that, I think they'll be willing to give him the money, because they've seen the players that he's brought in, and they know they can trust him.
But the way, even, after the bad start, 6 games, lost 3 of those, his demeanour never changed. He was very relaxed, he was kind of saying to the press, guys, calm down, it's a long season.
Yeah.
And that, you can see that's obviously, he's brought that message over to the players. Look, it's 6 games, just... We know we're building towards something. There's been a lot of changes. He's asking, his fullbacks to play in unusual positions. Ralston, who I think thrived when he plays, but it was going to take time. And I think his calm demeanour, his obviously knowing that his philosophy works, the way he wants to play works, and it has worked with other teams. He knew that it would come good, and as Tam says, he's certainly got an eye for a player, because you're looking at just now how much Rangers miss Morelos. Kyogo's every bit as good, but Celtic don't miss him halfway as much as Rangers miss Morelos, because they've got Giakoumakis to come in, Maeda to come in, other players who can fill that void. And I think that's testament to Postecoglou and how good he is at spotting a player.
Yeah, and early on, Tam, when it wasn't looking good in Europe, and I have to say, having watched a number of league games and then watched them in Europe, you actually got to the point where I was looking continually at the back line. I mean, I think early on, most of us were looking and saying, okay, you're building your side, that's fine. Sometimes managers paint a picture that it's not the game that you've watched. So I have asked them about, the back line and some of the chances they were giving up, most notably against Hearts and then in the European games. Starfelt, you could actually hear the crowd go when he got the ball in the early part of the season, but slowly but surely he settled down to form a partnership with the star of the show, which is Cameron Carter-Vickers.
No, I think he's got a settled back form now, and I think that was always a problem with Celtic. We've seen him going away to Betis and Leverkusen and going ahead and thinking, just shut up shop, do something, just tighten it up, but they couldn't. They were bringing on, no disrespect, guys like Welsh and Montgomery was playing, and guys like that, they had no strength and depth. So after 60, 70 minutes, when they players were knackered, he was looking at the bench and there was nothing there. You know, he was just throwing in boys for the sake of it. So I think he's now got a strong pool of players now that he can chop and change. But his back four's been really steady, and Joe Hart's been excellent as well. So I think that foundation, we always thought, oh, Celtic will score a lot of goals but conceding a lot of goals, but defensively over the last 3 or 4 months they've been outstanding. You know, they've been really good, and Starfelt, as you said, got off to a shaky start, and a lot of Celtic fans thought he was a bit of a bomb scare, to be honest, but he's come onto a game as well beside Carter-Vickers, who's been probably the player of the season for me.
Yeah, and looking at his stats as well, Carter-Vickers, I think, you know, topped off by scoring a goal in an Old Firm game, which always endears you to the supporters, but games played, 38 minutes played, 3,440, scored 4 goals, 69% of tackles won, duels won 234, clearances 165.
65 of them on Sunday.
I was just about to say, headers won 74%, interceptions 45, blocks won 17, pass completion 89%, long passes 155, short ones 2,815, and I think 2,800 of them have been to Starfelt as they play that along that back line repeatedly. But it just shows you how a defender's life, as you know, is analysed.
Yeah, it's you know. Yeah, I mean his passing accuracy, like you say, is 89% because he tends to go, you know, short to Starfelt. But in saying that, because the fullbacks go narrow, they're often left, and it's more difficult for Starfelt on the left-hand side because he's right-footed. But they're often left with a difficult pass to the wide player. Now, when it works and they get it to the wide player early, and I think we've seen Greg Taylor run through on goal because it works out really well. Ball goes to Jota, flipped in behind, but that's a difficult pass. But the two of them have dealt with it. They've dealt with the fact that a lot of times they're 2 for 2 at the back. They're both quick. They're both strong. And yes, I still feel that on the ball, Starfelt he does look a bit nervous, whereas Carter-Vickers looks completely composed. But as defenders, as centre backs, I think they're both excellent. I think they've got pace, they've got aggression, they win their headers, as we've seen there, they win loads of tackles. And I just think they've been a great addition to Celtic, and to get him on a permanent deal will be a huge move for Celtic. And
you look at the stats as far as goals conceded, they've only conceded 19 goals in 32 league games, Tam.
It's pretty good, you know, in terms of the way Celtic play. You know, they're very open and expansive, and they're always going to, opponents are always going to create opportunities against them. But you know, as Richard says, they leave 2v2 at the back. They trust the 2 centre halves, you know, to handle usually one striker. You know, if you play against Celtic Rangers, most of the teams out with Rangers we just play one up front and kind of pack the midfield and the defence. So no, I think they've been brilliant. And listen, Celtic supporters will be desperate to get him on a permanent deal. I don't know how much Tottenham will be looking for. Can he go and play in the Premier League? Probably. You know, it's just up to him. Does he fancy a crack at the Champions League, or does he going to go and take the cash and go back down to England?
Yeah, well, the reports are that Burnley, Leicester and Wolverhampton Wanderers are looking at him, but can Celtic just steal a march on them all and get in there with a deal that will be acceptable to Tottenham Hotspur?
If Rodgers takes him.
Yeah.
I don't get that. Well, those teams you've listed, was it Leicester, Burnley and Wolves?
Yeah.
I personally don't get why you'd leave Celtic to go and play at those clubs.
Yeah,
you know, stay Celtic, win championships, play in the Champions League. You know what I mean? I just think go and play in the Champions League and do well, and you'll get a better move than a Wolves or a Burnley.
Yeah.
I agree with you too, but Leicester, I'd maybe go to Leicester.
Yeah.
I think you could get 80 grand a week at Leicester. How much would they get at Celtic? 30.
Well, exactly. I think
you'd win things.
You're not going to go.
I'd take the money.
Would you? Yeah.
I'm a mercenary, you know that anyway.
The other thing about it as well, which Richard doesn't know because he's only early in the door, he doesn't know the type of rat you are when it comes to money. We only have to ask Terry Butcher about you and your dealings in the transfer market. But nevertheless, it's a short career. The Cameron Carter-Vickers will have. I'm in your camp. You know, how much is enough with regards to it? He might be able to play Champions League, get an even bigger move, and it's always a good test of how good you really are. I know a lot of Celtic fans would love to see him stay at Celtic, but money talks, and as Tam mentioned there, a lot of players look and think, can I go and play in the Premier League with all the riches that it offers? As far as the odds now, after that win for Celtic at the weekend, here's how the bookies view this whole run-in now. Celtic 1-12, Rangers 11-1, and you know, Scottish Cup winners, Celtic 5-4, Rangers 11-8, Hearts 8-1, Hibs 10-1. and to be look at Tam's face here, to be relegated 9-2 on Dundee and 15-2 St Johnstone.
I tell you what, that's Rangers 11-1 to win the league. That means if you put a tenner on, you lose a tenner.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, to be perfectly honest with you, I'm so glad you said that, because just steam into him, by the way, because Richard and I were just sitting here totally not saying anything, and there he is. He's bombed right in there. He's already been getting flack on Twitter, but nevertheless, I think a lot of Rangers fans on our feed have been saying, listen, nothing is won till it's mathematically impossible for Rangers to catch Celtic. There will be a lot of fans who'll be saying they've got to step up to the plate. And, I think looking at European football and then the Scottish Cup semi-final, it's amazing how a game of football can turn and transform your season. So it's just one of those things. You can give us your thoughts on it as well. Here's how that league table looks after the weekend's matches, and that's perhaps why Dundee are absolutely odds on to get relegated, because you can see the difference between them and St Johnstone at the bottom. But at the top end there, the 6 points and the goal difference, I think, is what really is convincing everybody, Richard.
Yeah, because you're looking at that thinking they need to win 3 more games than St Johnstone, and how many? I don't even know how many games they've won all season. It's probably around about 3 or 4. So they've not really performed well enough. There's been no sign recently. I know that 2-2 against Aberdeen, but they still leak simple goals. I don't think there's been any sign that they're going to, suddenly go on a run of 3 or 4 games where they're going to win them all. And then you look at St Johnstone, who have got that. They've got a goal scorer. They've tightened up defensively. They've won the last 2 games. Yes, I know they go away to Celtic in the next game, but I just think St Johnstone are in a better place, and I don't see Dundee catching them. And I actually think I said it yesterday, I think St Johnstone might just catch on to St Mirren and possibly Aberdeen, depending on how their form goes.
Yeah, you can give us your thoughts on that, St Mirren fans. Certainly a transitional period now under Stephen Robinson. Just one little footnote to the Rangers Celtic game, which has been commented on by Neil Doncaster, the SFA or the SPFL, I beg your pardon, chief executive, who says that he's ruling out strict liability for clubs with regards to fan behaviour. It doesn't work as the repeated fines for specific clubs in UEFA competitions season after season demonstrate very clearly. The answer must be for harsher and targeted punishments for the individuals who perpetrated the crime, including a more regular use of football banning orders and, where necessary, custodial sentences. So again, he's flipping it and saying, these fans who continually misbehave, and some to the degree where they could have caused serious damage to players' health, it's got to be the police who've got to get in there and arrest them, and then the clubs, once they know the fan in question, ban them forever.
Oh, ban for life. I mean, if you catch the people that threw that bottle onto the pitch, you should never be in another football match in their life. And I totally agree with Neil Doncaster there. I don't think it's up to clubs. I mean, clubs would be bankrupt. Every week, strict liability, people throwing stuff, idiots. You'd be, every single week you'd be out of pocket. So I think they've got to weed these people out. And they need to help for other supporters, decent supporters. Must be supporters at that game who've seen that cretin throw a bottle.
Yeah.
Shop them. You don't need to do it anonymously. Just say, listen, that was his seat, or whoever it was.
I think that's why the strict liability doesn't seem to work, because that's, if a guy comes to the game or a woman comes to the game and they're willing to throw a glass bottle at a physio onto a pitch, you don't really want to go and say to them, by the way, don't do that, because what are they going to do with the bottle when they've got it in their hand? You might end up getting it over your head. So they can't, the strict liability, I think, only works. You punish the club, and the club say to the fans, right guys, you need to help us out and help us police this. If you see anything untoward, you need to tell us. But they're not going to do that, because these people they're morons, and you don't know what they're going to do. Yeah. So I think then it has to be the individual. You have to get rid of the individual. But even some of the fans groups, I think Celtic done it with the one of their fans groups. They kind of broke them up and spread them around. I think you need to do that, because and I'm not saying that any one of the fans groups threw these bottles, but if you're in this group, the Union Bears, for example, if you're in that group, then you'll feel, you've got a bit of strength in numbers. So you need to kind of try and dispel these groups, so it's people are there as individuals almost as well, so then you will shop an individual, because you wouldn't shop him if there's 10 guys behind him, waiting to kind of argue with you. So it's all these big kind of groups tend to have the power in the stadiums.
The strange thing about it,
and
though,
just the Union Bears was just an example because it came into my head.
I get what you're talking about, because of course when you think you're in a large group, you think at times you can hide in among them, and you can throw your flares, as has often happened in the last couple of years. I just wonder, at that point with the Joe Hart one, that came from the Copeland Road end, when Joe Hart was walking onto the park. So clearly somebody, whether it hit the bar or whatever, nobody can say for certain, but it smashed into enough areas around that 6-yard area that any player, Rangers or Celtic, could have really done themselves serious damage. The other thing, I agree with Neil Doncaster, I think it's very difficult to suddenly start to create a level of what strict liability is all about, because you only have to watch this week. And
insurance premiums would be through the roof for a start.
Not only that, but clubs would really start to suffer with Allison had written a column for PLZ Soccer talking about the fact that some could even be a situation where clubs forfeit the game because of the stupidity of some morons who are not really. I'm loath to call them fans. They are morons in society under normal circumstances. You only have to look at the police who've arrested 6, possibly more, for singing sectarian songs. These people sing sectarian songs because that's part of their life. They are bigoted, and they actually go about their life hating a certain group because of their religion or who they support, and that's the way they live their lives. So, does the club, and most clubs are trying to eradicate the morons, but does the club have to consistently suffer? Because you only have to look at what happens in European football. Some fans go away to another country and think they're invisible. And then they get filmed singing sectarian songs because that's the way they live their life in society.
No, it is. It's so sad, actually, to see that. These supporters, they do think they're invisible. And listen, in European terms, Celtic in particular have been hit with massive fines over the last few years. And eventually it's going to come to they're playing in front of empty stadiums. I've seen it abroad, clubs in Europe playing in front of no supporters, and that's going to come to Celtic and Rangers, if they keep misbehaving on European nights.
Yeah, it's a sad situation, but I think Neil Doncaster on this occasion is correct. Strict liability is going to be very, very difficult to be implemented and accepted by clubs, bearing in mind that you cannot be responsible for every lout, thug, moron who actually attends games, and policing them at times is very difficult, and it's not a job that I would envy for any police officer going to a game, especially a category A game like the one at the weekend. Lots of other topics to discuss as well. I think the general consensus from us all is that, and I wonder if you can just look at the league table again, Tam, because we're all looking at the bottom and saying, okay, it's fairly straightforward, and the top looks as if it's straightforward, but the middle section, the games this weekend are just, it's incredible. I'm going to go to the Edinburgh Derby just to see if Hearts are going to inflict the ultimate on Hibs and Hibs drop into the bottom 6, but it's perfectly feasible that could happen.
Yeah, it is. It's so important to get into that top 6, to go and challenge for Europe, because if you're in that bottom 6, there's a chance you're going to be finishing the playoff, in the relegation playoff, and that gives right up to Hibs. Hibs, I think Motherwell have probably just got enough, Dundee United, but Hibs need to get a result, because you might find yourself in that bottom 6 and you're in a dogfight. St Johnstone pick up a couple of wins, and all of a sudden you're looking over your shoulder. And it could be that for the first time in split history, it could be that the team in the top 6 that finishes sixth might have less than the team that finishes the playoff. I was just thinking that there. Can you imagine, I don't know, for talking's sake, Hibs finish 6th and they lose every game in the top 6, and then St Johnstone win 3 or 4 games, and eventually Hibs end up with less points. It's mental. Yeah. So it's really important for clubs to get into that top 6, and then you can forget about the playoff place.
The one good thing about it is it's kept it all alive. If ever the SPFL are looking at the Scottish Premier League and thinking, okay, this is what it's all about. I'm a huge fan of it should be 16 or 18 clubs in the top flight, because I think we have enough clubs to do that for the top flight. and to give us a bit of variety and give managers a chance to maybe take chances in certain games. But it's almost something that just pales into insignificance when you have something like this at the tail end of the season.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you in terms of the league. I think the bigger the league, I think it would be better. I think it'd be more exciting. But I think, if there's ever justification for having the split, I know at the time it was kind of ridiculed a little bit, and people were like, oh, it's a lot of nonsense. But you look at this season, and this has probably been the strongest the Premiership's been in Scotland for a while, in terms of all the kind of the bigger teams are there, except Thistle, obviously. But this race, and you look at it there, and I think, what is it, Ross County play Aberdeen? If Hearts beat Hibs, either of those can go above Hibs and get into the top 6. Livingston have still got in there with a shout. So I think it's really exciting, and it makes, yes, it's probably good that we've got this and we've got the relegation battle, because for all intents and purposes the league is over now, you would imagine, unless Celtic capitulate. But it's good that we've got this excitement to see who's going to get into that top 6, and as Tam suggests, they're the ones that don't. If you've just missed out in the top 6, there's going to be a level of disappointment there, and then you need to react quickly, because you don't want to get yourself dragged into that playoff battle. Because St Johnstone will be looking at all the teams above them, thinking, right, if we can just catch one of them, we can maybe get ourselves out of this playoff place.
Yeah, and if you're talking about predicaments and the fallout from it, you just mentioned there, if Aberdeen finish in the bottom half, that is a club that needs a clear out.
Yeah, listen, Stephen Glass is a friend of mine, but it never worked. It didn't work. His new style of play, Derek McInnes, I think there was a wee bit stale up there, but be careful what you wish for, I think, is the phrase, because he had Aberdeen up there every season in the top 6, every season, third or fourth. Okay, some of the football at times wasn't great, and Aberdeen wanted to go in a different direction in terms of being more expansive, but Scottish football is Scottish football. It's difficult to just come in and just change your total philosophy and get results. So Derek McInnes showed that
it happened before with Jimmy Calderwood. Got rid of Jimmy Calderwood because of his cup form, and then what came after that was years of kind of fight bottom 6, not playing great. McGee came in, and it wasn't until then McInnes came back in. That McInnes came in that they started top half of the table, and we've seen it again and again. They've made another, they've made a change. Yes, you're right, but I think Derek had done enough to kind of go, maybe it's got a bit stale, but you've done enough that will give you time to kind of. You've got to remember as well, at one point they'd lost like 4 strikers with injury and selling them and stuff. He had his problems, Derek, and I think he would have turned it round, and I think they'd have been still in the top half of the league. But you're right, careful what you wish for, because if imagine we've got a bottom 6 that have got Aberdeen and Hibs in it, that would be incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. Unbelievable. We're about to find out shortly. Listen, with that in mind, thanks to so many of you who have mentioned that we put a video up earlier, which is the launch of, it's back, our Champions League night, and we're going to have a Champions League night live on the big screens. And we have been around a few stadiums. We've had it at Hampden Park, we've had it at various hotels around Glasgow, we've got it in the Kerrydale suite at Celtic Park. Tam Cowan is going to host it for us, and basically it's a chance to come along, watch the Champions League live on the big screens. We've got a pop quiz, we've got a romantic holiday for 2, Tam, to be won with the pop quiz if you're any good at it, and over and above that, you get your meal and you get a half-time pie, and you get Tam absolutely slaughtering everybody, which I don't know about you, but it's just a recipe for a fantastic.
Aye, no, it sounds like.
Plus, you watch the Champions League.
I know, it sounds like a great night. Unfortunately, I'll be away golfing that night. That day and night, so I'll not be there. But I'm sure you'll have a good night.
Oh, we'll have a good night without you, absolutely.
Is it pop music?
Pop music, yeah.
He's taking the missus along.
Yeah.
Oh.
To be perfectly honest with you, I'm talking about pop music beyond the last 5 years, so Amy wouldn't be any good at that.
Oh, you'd be surprised.
Yes,
surprised.
Clued Up.
Ashes is incredible.
Yeah.
The
table gone. Yes.
that game is Hurdle.
Yeah.
We listened to one today, and she listened to 1 second of the song, and I won't.
She nailed it.
She nailed it. I won't announce what it was in case there's people out there playing it, but she listened to one. Like I said, it was 1 second of the song. You heard 2 noises, and that was it. She knew it.
Yeah, still it was Mr.
Tina
Rock
Turner.
and Roll from her first album. You know what?
Tina Turner, simply the best.
Don't start your patter, you. Anyway, apart from anything else, 28th of May, you can get details from tomorrow on PLZ Soccer's Facebook page as well. So hopefully, if you want to come along, we'd love to see you there with your mates. You can enjoy it. Tam is in blistering form on the after dinner circuit. It's going to be a really good fun night. We have been doing it regularly at Hampden and other places across West and Central Scotland, and it's always a right good night. So we'll give you more details of that tomorrow on the show, as well as on our Facebook and on our website. You're talking about the implications of relegation, playoffs, you name it. Of course, it's always the uncertainty coming up shortly for players who might be picking up awards, but some players will be wondering where their next paycheck is coming from, and some players will be wondering when they're going to actually get a run in the game. At Hibs, Kyle Magennis out for the season. That's a blow. Sean Maloney's never really been able to get, I think, all the players that he wants playing in the game.
No, it's a big blow. I think he's shown when he's been fit that he's a quality player, but he had a lot of injury problems at St Mirren. You know, Hibs took a punt on him when he was injured. I think he'd just come back from a cruciate injury when Hibs signed him, and Hibs paid, I think, a 6-figure fee for him. So he wasn't cheap. Gave him a 4-year deal. Came in, done well, but he's been out for quite a while now, and it's disappointing. He signed a 4-year deal when you're thinking, you know, he's a guy you could maybe get into the team, do well, and then sell on, a la John McGinn.
Yeah.
You know, he's kind of similar players, but he's had so many injury problems. So, you know, the boy's he's got to get himself fit and back in the team. But it's disappointing for the Hibs supporters, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for all the messages. Andrew Breslin is just straight to the point. He says Hibs will beat Hearts. So there you are.
He's right.
Andrew is...
I'll be there.
Yeah, exactly. You'll be there dressed as Dustin Hoffman was in Tootsie, trying to avoid any flack. Stephen says, I sit beside a Celtic fan who's a total Ned. I've pulled him up for some of his colourful... What are you laughing at? I'm just reading out the messages. He says, I've pulled him up for some colourful language. So it's not just Rangers fans, to be fair. No, Stephen, you're absolutely right. And I don't think... anyone is saying it's just Rangers fans. It's not. It's a situation where at the weekend, the fallout from that game was sadly, at the Rangers' end, and I think you only have to look at previous misdemeanours to see that we have a problem from time to time. In fact, we were worried about it a couple of months ago with fans running onto the park, albeit young, boisterous people, but you never know when somebody runs onto the park. Richard, players think to themselves, are they celebrating? Are we in trouble?
Yeah, and but I always find it strange. You've seen instances where fans have come on to try, and I think we've seen it at Hibs with James Tavernier when the fan came on to try and hit him. I'm just thinking to myself, I've got 6 studs in each boot here. If the fan's running towards me, then he's going to feel the sharp end of my boot. But but you're right. Your first instinct, if it's someone sprinting towards you, your first thing is I'm going to protect myself here, even if they're, I wouldn't get many fans coming to congratulate me for it, and so I would be ready for it. But it can be. I've been on the pitch when it's kind of been invaded. I think it was down at Bristol when we stayed up. And it's quite intimidating, you've suddenly got thousands of people on the pitch and you can't really move, and there's people everywhere, and it's just not something you want to see in football. And I think you're right. I think you said it before that a lot of these guys, I don't think they're football fans. I think they're morons, and they just hide behind the fact that I'm going to go to a football match and cause trouble. Yeah. And I think that's what they do. I don't think they're genuinely supporting any club. I think they're just there to cause trouble, and they hide behind being a football fan.
Yeah, it's a perfect platform for some people. Nicky Twig says, Peter, you'll find that all these guys or girls, they're friends. They sit together for years, but they won't want to be known as the person who's reported something that's wrong. Because sometimes it's very difficult. Even trying to pinpoint somebody in a ground, you're putting yourself in real danger. Because it's a very difficult thing to do, to highlight it on the day right there and then that this person is, out of order. But Nicky says, I wouldn't hesitate to report someone. Listen, the last thing you would want is to jeopardise your own safety by, rightly taking the moral high ground and pointing things out. But there are some times when it's very, very difficult to do so, and I think we all have to understand that as well. But more often than not, we like to talk about the positive things, the good things that are happening on the field of play. And for Kyle Lafferty, 7 goals in 11 games for Kilmarnock since he came back. It's been a shrewd signing. He's Championship Player of the Month.
Yeah, and I think he's won Kilmarnock the league, to be honest. I think that was what they were missing. Someone to stick the ball in the net. I think Ollie Shaw's done really well as well. He scored a lot of goals, scored a lot of penalties, albeit some of them weren't penalties, but never mind.
Yeah.
But no, I think just, you know, when you sign a player like Kyle Lafferty, it gives the whole squad a boost, gives them a lift, because you always know if he gets a chance, he's likely to take it. And I think Tommy tried to get him back earlier in the season, but his wage demands didn't match what Kilmarnock could offer. But yes, he's obviously lowered them, or Kilmarnock have been given more money. Derek's been given more money, I don't know. But yeah, a great signing for him. And like I say, I think he's one of the reasons why I think Kilmarnock will go on and win the league.
Yeah, his goal the other week there, Tam, for me is the best free kick I've seen this season. There's been a few belters, but the one he scored the other week there was absolutely top drawer.
Yeah, it was. It was I think it was a pivotal moment in the game as well when he put that in. He scored an overhead kick a week ago as well. So he's been a great signing. But I think the key is getting him on a short-term deal. You know, as a striker myself, you know, if he keep you hungry, you know, keep you on a 6-month deal. I think that was the same when Lafferty came in the first time to Kilmarnock. You know, he got a move to Cyprus. He's obviously come back, and Kilmarnock's gave him a deal at the end of the season. And for me, Kyle will probably bang a few goals and get Kilmarnock promoted, and then go somewhere else.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. Listen, there are players. I don't want to say, I don't want to use the word mercenary, but to hell with it. You know, there are players who just like to move on, and sometimes their circumstances dictate that they want to earn a bit of money from signing on fees. I remember with Chick Charlie in one year, and he just basically was telling us the story of his life, and he said, you know, there were some times I thought to myself, if I could get out of this club, I could get myself a signing on fee. He said, so I belted one of my teammates. And you know, that way you don't expect that kind of story to be relayed to you, but nevertheless, not something I would advise if you're looking for a move.
I tried that and got battered by Danny Swanson.
Lowland League have had a vote, and they're going to accept Celtic and Rangers again. This is what the statement revealed. The member clubs of the Scottish Lowland Football League tonight voted on the inclusion of guest clubs for season 2022-23. A comfortable majority of 11-4 indicated a preference for their involvement. While conscious it is divisive and an emotive subject, the overriding feeling is their presence has been of benefit in a commercial sense. It is important to note guest clubs will not be eligible for promotion, nor will they hamper the ability of clubs to be promoted to or relegated from the Lowland League. The board of the SLFL remain committed to making a positive impact within our communities and Scottish football, and will maintain an open mind to any initiatives that support those aims. Good move?
Yeah, I think it is. But the only thing I would say is, you know, I think it maybe hampers clubs coming up. You know, I don't think there's going to be a lot of room for your Darvils and your teams like that who are very ambitious. Auchinleck, whether Auchinleck want to get up or no into the senior leagues, I don't know. But particularly Darvel, who I think are a very ambitious club and want to go senior. They're pushing to get into that league, but I've not got a problem with Celtic, Rangers, Colts being in there. I think it's good, but at the other end, I think that you've got to be fair to the clubs lower down the chain and give them the ample opportunities to get in, because it was only supposed to be for one season. You know, now they're extending it, and you know, as I said, Bonnie Rose is another one who possibly will want to go senior as well. So listen, it's going to be difficult, but I think it's been good getting the Colt team.
I think more needs to be done to get the reserve leagues back. I think, you know, clubs always talk about the money. We don't have the money for this. We don't have the money for that, and then they'll go and spend £100,000 on a player. They're going, well, you know, that's money, and I know the way the finances work, but I don't know the way the finances work. But it's different, and it's not just a case of, yes, you're buying a player for £100,000 and then you've got that money to spend. But I just think, you know, when we came through Tam, you played reserves and you played with guys who dropped down at the first team, hungry to get back in the first team, and that was your experience. That's when you get to play against kind of senior pros. You get to test yourself against better players. You would train with them in the lead up to a game, and I think that would be more beneficial than the Colts teams being in the lower leagues. And I just think more needs to be done to get that reserve league back, because for me, I thought it was a great way to, you know, you'd done well with under 19s, you got into the reserve squad, and it was tough because I was kind of 16-year-old boy built at the side of a fiver playing against Neil Lennon and Paul Lambert and guys like that. So it's a huge education, and I think we're missing that. And even these guys playing the Colts teams, they suddenly they've not, you know, they go 16, 17, 18, and then it's like a huge jump to get into their first teams. And I just think that so many players fall away from the game because that jump is too big, whereas for someone in between, they might continue their development.
Do you think it accelerates the learning process and gives them a greater chance of being able to make that jump?
What, the reserve league?
Yeah.
I think because I was talking to Mohamed Niang about it at Thistle, and I says that it's probably easier now to make your debut, I think, as a younger player. But I think when we made our debut, a long time ago, I think we were better prepared because you came through the stages and it wasn't such a huge jump. Now, all the exceptional players will make that jump and they'll go into their first teams, but all those guys who maybe need 1 or 2 more years development, they tend to fall away from the game or fall down the leagues because there's not that reserve football for them.
Do you agree with them, Tam?
Yeah, I do. The problem with the reserve league was, it was basically, there was no older players playing. I think it was a couple of years ago, the under-20 league or something. It was just basically all kids playing against kids, and I think that was why they thought, listen, we'll try and get into the Colts team. So when we were playing in reserves, there was I don't think there was a limit. You could just play however you wanted. So there would be 5 or 6 guys that didn't play on a Saturday. First team boys, they would drop down and play on a Monday night, and you were playing against. I remember playing against Maurice Malpass when I was 17. Guys like that, and he's spot on there. It gives you a great education, but
maybe the generation thing has moved on as such now that some of the older players now don't want to play.
Yeah, that's another one. You get these players and they don't want to drop down. They'll say, no, they don't want to play. I think that was a problem as well over the last couple of seasons where the guys that weren't playing weren't prepared to go and play in the reserves.
Yeah.
They were just playing, remember, play bounce games or organised friendlies. They weren't prepared to go down and play with the kids. So that's something in between's got to be sorted. But because Richard's totally right, the reserve league was superb back in the day.
Yeah, okay. There's no reserve league tonight, and tomorrow night's Champions League football, the absolute, the top of our game. European football at this stage, certainly the business end of the Champions League, is good to watch. I'll be tuned in for Benfica against Liverpool. Here's the other fixtures. It's Man City against Atletico Madrid. You wouldn't want to watch that, Dross. Villarreal against Bayern Munich and Chelsea against Real Madrid. I've picked my 2 games already, Richard. I don't know about yourself, but Benfica, Liverpool, and then Chelsea, Real Madrid is an absolute cracker.
Well, being that Real Madrid are the team that I picked to win it, I'll be watching that game.
Yeah, that's your third pick. Well, you've still got another section you can pick somebody else.
Exactly. You live and learn. But no, I think the Man City Atletico Madrid game, the way Atletico Madrid play, they slow the game down. They tend to draw a lot of games or win 1-0, so that might be quite boring. But Chelsea Real Madrid on paper, I think looks like it could be interesting. I think Chelsea are a good side, but they concede goals, as do Real Madrid. So I think it would be quite an open game.
Yeah, I mean Chelsea. Can you imagine somebody, even the most ardent Brentford fan, was not putting that money on them winning at Stamford Bridge?
Incredible. Nobody's seen that result coming.
Yeah.
Chelsea have been pretty strong. They've had a wee bit of a bump in the road, Chelsea. They've not been getting great results recently, and that was a fantastic result. That'll be a good game, but I think you're right. I think Atletico Madrid, a lot of people like Diego Simeone and the way he plays. No, I can't take to him. I'm Pep Guardiola all day over Simeone.
Yeah.
Oh, in terms of football, I don't know, listen, budgets, Man City can buy the best players and all that, but just the style of play, Atletico Madrid, you couldn't pay me to go and watch him for a season ticket.
Is that right?
No, I'm not having them at all, no. I'd rather watch Pep or Jurgen Klopp.
Okay, that's an interesting one. I'm going to watch Benfica against Liverpool. Listen, just one little footnote in the... I don't think anybody, if they didn't pick the Brentford one, they certainly didn't see Crystal Palace thumping Arsenal by 3-0. Even Mikel Arteta is wondering now, are they going to make that top 4? This is what he had to say after Patrick Vieira's side thumped them.
Pressure has been there for the last 7 or 8 weeks. We are talking all the time about the race on the top 4, and these boys, they've been performing extremely well, getting results and playing really well. Today we didn't perform. It's as simple as that. We were second best in every department, especially in the first half, and we were trying to change in the second half. Well, we did, and we play much more the game that we want to play.
Neck and neck at the moment with them and Tottenham, although Arsenal have played a game less, so it's nip and tuck. This is God's word, I'm not kidding you on, by the way. I was doing a dinner at the Thistle Hotel. It was many years ago, and also the people in the top table with me were Mikel Arteta, Claudio Caniggia and Lorenzo Amoruso. and we all got a photograph taken together, and Mikel Arteta looks exactly the same as he does now. I mean, it's either the best hair dye ever, or he is aging fantastically well.
Yeah, he looks. Tam and I were just discussing it there, having played against him. I only played against him in a bounce game. I think he was at Everton at the time, and he looked exactly like that. You know, even his face, he doesn't seem to have any wrinkles. He's like Benjamin Button. You know, he just seems to look exactly the same as he did 15 years ago.
What a player he was, by the way. I can remember we played them at Ibrox, and it was him and Barry Ferguson in the middle of the park. Yeah. And Alec McLeish said to me, "Listen, just drop in, drop in on one of them, right?" And I spent the whole game just chasing him, because when I went to Ferguson, the ball went to Arteta, and they beat us 2-1, and it could have been 21. We get away with murder, but he was some player.
Yeah, and he's battling away there. Do you know what? It's so tough to pick the top four. I really do hope. I think they might have just shot themselves in the foot, West Ham, with losing too many crucial games. But I wanted West Ham to make it into that top four for David Moyes. But I'm looking at, I think maybe Tottenham are coming to the boil at the right time. It's going to be Liverpool or Man City, then Chelsea, and then one other.
Yeah, I think and Harry Kane seems to be, he's had a very, very good season, but more recently he's just shown that his all-round game. He's dropping into that pocket. He's kind of assisting goals. He's still scoring goals. It's quite interesting that I watched the other night when it was Wayne Rooney was talking about Harry Kane, and I think for me Wayne Rooney's probably one of the most underrated players. I think he's the best English player that I've seen play. I think he was better than Kane is now, which is saying something, because I think Kane's in fantastic form. But it's quite interesting to listen to him talk about Harry Kane, because obviously he's chasing his record with England goals as well. But no, I think Tottenham, I think you're right. They're just hitting form at the right time. My tattoo artist is a West Ham fan, so again for him I was hoping they'd get in, but they've still had a fantastic season even if they don't. But no, I think Tottenham are they'll probably go on and get in there in top four. Yeah,
and if you could see Richard's entire body, you'd realise why he was so friendly with his tattoo artist. So there's a line, Tam.
Yeah, don't hammer him.
Yeah, you're not the type of guy that strikes me who's got. Have you got?
I've not got a tattoo. No, I've not got one.
He's not even got a t-shirt on the day.
I've not got a tattoo.
No, I know that. I know you've got your body on there with your no hairs on your chest at all. The other thing about it is, remember that people who get tattoos are able to go through some sort of pain barrier, and you are definitely not that character.
Oh, you've got a very, very low pain threshold. I think I could even get my missus' initials on my hand or something. I'd be bottling it.
Yeah, due to the fact you can't spell it, but nevertheless, apart from anything else, he was able to sign the wedding register, and it's all legal. Great to have Tam and Richard with us. We'll be back tomorrow. Charlie, all things being equal, will be with us here in the studio. We'll get Charlie Adams.
Lewis Ferguson coming in as well.
Yeah, we might get Lewis in.
Get Lewis in.
That would be great. I can't wait to see.
No, there's no love lost between the two, by the way.
A pound to a penny. Charlie comes in here and says, "Wait a minute, he was tugging my shirt. I was trying to shrug him off." Honestly, it's a stonewall.
Just a dirty player, Charlie.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Well, I can't wait to tell him to his face. Anyway, apart from anything,
he won't chat.
He won't be.
He's so busy.
He watches it. Thank you very much to you for watching. Don't forget, if you hit the subscribe button and hit the bell, you'll get all the notifications of our unique content. We've got some great one-to-ones up there already. We've got more on the way, and over the next week, your man here, Richard, is going to pick the best 11 players that he's played with in his career. I'm not saying his career's over, but he's played with a few crackers. Will anybody beat Ruffy's? Pat Nevin's got his 11 going up there shortly. Jamie Murphy's picked his Dream Team 11. And of course, Tam's is already up there. It's going to be interesting to see the type of players that Richard picks. So if you get onto PLZ Soccer's YouTube channel, hit the subscribe button. The easiest way to do it all is if you download the PLZ Soccer app. You get all the breaking stories, and it's all at your fingertips as well. So thanks very much to Richard and to Tam. From myself, Peter Martin, thanks to you for watching.